Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here in Tampa, Florida, to cover the National Defense Industrial Association's annual SOFIC conference and trade show, where our coverage is sponsored by FLIR Systems. We're over here at the UK pavilion to talk to Stephen Scott of MBDA, Europe's missile systems, Europe's leading missile maker. You're the guy who envisions the future battle space, the future battlefield, to sort of think through what are the kind of technologies and systems that the company's got to develop, and I do want to get your views on that. But first, I want to ask you about the Enforcer system. That's an anti-tank or anti-armor or anti-materiel weapon that's fire and forget, but just under a javelin. You guys are developing that. Germany's got a requirement. Guys are going to propose that for that competition. Talk to us a little bit about the Enforcer system and why you think it's necessary and unique on a future battlefield.
Sure, so Enforcer is a multi-purpose battlefield weapon, very much giving you the levels of precision and the effects that you might traditionally employ anti-tank guided weapons for, but without the need for the increased cost and increased mass of anti-tank guided weapons. So it has a multi-target set, moving targets, as well as counter-defilade capability as well, and it can have those effects out to 2-kilometer range.
And what sort of form and fit factor and cost factor are you shooting for? Because the Javelin's a very good weapon, but it is a bit on the large side. It's precise, but it's also heavy, and it's also much longer range than that. But talk to us a little bit about the size, weight, cost envelope that you guys are trying to shoot for to try to make it attractive on the market.
Sure, so in terms of mass, we're very much looking to about 11 kilograms all up. That includes the sight. The missile itself's got a 7-kilogram mass. In terms of cost, we sort of aiming to sit somewhere between an anti-tank guided weapon at the top end and then unguided infantry rounds, at the bottom, at the lower end. Yeah.
And how are you getting the package down? You've got the missile canister and then the optics and the sight. Talk to us about the sort of unique method you're using to pair these things together to try to take as much cost out of the system.
Yeah, sure. So it's very much a cost-driven development, and it's required us to come up with some innovative ways to get the subsystem cost down, but also to get the mass and volume down, while still retaining the level of precision that you would expect from one of our products.
And how are you doing that, for example? So the sight, the tube is separate from the sight.
Yeah, absolutely. So the tube acts as an environmental seal for the missile. So once you fired the missile, you can dispose of the tube. And the sight is reusable, so that can be used multiple times as well. So it essentially helps reduce the burden on the infantryman, and which is obviously quite an important thing to try and aim for.
And talk to us a little about the upcoming competition in Germany, and who are the competitors you're going up against for that contract? Germany, like all the countries in Europe, are on a bit of a spending spree. Everybody's investing more money, in part because of concerns about Russia. Tell us a little bit about that program, because you guys have been developing this weapon for the last couple of years and have been in firing tests for a while as well.
Yeah, so we've been internally funding the development of the Enforcer system for a couple of years now. We're expecting it to be a qualified product by next year, towards the end of 2019. And obviously we're looking at a number of markets, one of which is a German requirement for both special forces and infantry, but also we're seeing that same requirement emerge from a number of countries, both in Europe and outside of Europe as well. So we are seeing quite a strong demand for this kind of lower level capability with the same precision and effects.
And what about the U.S. market? Obviously, you're here at SOFIC, a lot of premier special operations show probably in the world. Tell us the kind of competitions and opportunities you see in the United States, and what opportunities do you see for partnership should the customer want, not just U.S. manufacturing, which has always been an American prerequisite, but also American componentry seekers and the like, because that's also another preference the United States often attaches to programs.
Yeah, absolutely, and we fully recognize that latter point that you've just made. So the Enforcer system's got a modular architecture. We've designed that in from the beginning. So should customers specify that they want domestic seekers or domestic warheads. That's absolutely something we can accommodate and we've looked into. In terms of manufacturing, MBDA has a manufacturing facility in Huntsville, Alabama, and so if we did see an emerging requirement from the US customer, then we would almost certainly look to manufacture at that facility there and use US supply chain wherever possible. In terms of broader interest, why are we here at SOFIC? Well, it's the biggest special forces conference in the world, so obviously there's a lot of US attendees, but there's dozens and dozens of other countries here, and special forces I think would make very good use of such a capability as Enforcer.
And tell us a little bit about how you envision the battlefield of the future, because that's actually your full-time job with the company. What governments around the world are trying to look at a peer competition, future battlefield with high-end systems, but also a lot of subversion, a lot of hybrid, a lot of cyber, a lot of electronic warfare. In many respects, trying to win without fighting as well. How do you see the battlefield of the future, and how is MBDA positioning itself in that battlefield of the future in terms of the investments you're making? I think we have evidence of one of them right here. But talk to us about what you envision that future fight looking like.
Yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of analysis as to what we think the future battlefield might look like. And clearly, there's quite a broad spectrum of potential future conflicts that our armed forces may be involved with, from counterinsurgency and peacekeeping operations right up to full peer-on-peer conflict or near-peer conflict as well. And it can be a challenge to try and design weapon systems that cover that entire breadth of requirement space, really, as well as that, the environment, not just the geographical environment, but we talk about complex contexts of future conflict, and very much, an increased emphasis on urban warfare is something that is particularly challenging. That's not to say, of course, that non-urban warfare will not feature, because it almost certainly will. But certainly dense urban environments, especially ones that may have civilian populations there, are very, very challenging ones in which to work, and that drives a lot of the requirements for our future weapon systems that we have in development today. Precision is an obvious one, and certainly improving precision wherever possible. But it's also part of the full kill chain. So right from the very beginning, where you find your target, fix it, track it, engage it, right through to doing battle damage assessment. Actually, being able to do that a lot quicker is a very important thing going forward. So trying to just step through that kill chain as quickly as possible allows you to keep the tempo of operations up. It allows the soldier or the infantryman to have greater agility, and potentially improve the outcome of a conflict as well.
And do things like anti-jam and other sort of features become more important, do you think, in that future battle space?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I fully expect, cyber is obviously a thing that a lot of people are talking about at the moment, and jamming and electronic warfare is a big thing, and it's something that we just need to be mindful of, so that we design weapon systems that are robust to those sort of countermeasures that we may come up against in the future.
Stephen Scott, the man who at MBDA Missile Systems mines the future battle space. Thanks very much for taking time with us today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.